Hi guys, this is Jawad and I'm going to be starting the session now. So today I'm going to walk you through a few basics of using Paper2D and Unreal Engine. And so Paper2D is like a kind of an extension, but it comes inbuilt with Unreal Engine, and it allows you to make like sprites and models. So um, like rather than using 3D models, you can use 2D pictures to create sprites, and then you use those sprites into your project. So right now I'm using Unreal Engine 4.26 because that's the one I have installed. I haven't worked that much with Unreal Engine 5, but if you do have Unreal Engine 5, the process should still be similar. So right now I'm going to use the 2D side scroller template and keep everything at its default values. The project name is going to be Paper2D Workshop, and then we can create project. Another project is loading up. For the mic, let me check that. Is there less interference right now for the mic? I hope. Anyway, so yeah, right now, so what I'm going to do is first, so we have this basic content. So I'm going to create a new folder in which we're going to be putting our own content. Right, so mostly I like to follow a similar scheme that they already have and then build on top of that. So here we'll make one for sprites and one for textures. So with textures, you can use any PNG image, and you can use those as like the building blocks on your maps. Also, I'm going to create a maps folder. In here, I'll create a new map and call it base map. So here's our empty map. As a quick intro to like Unreal Engine, I'll use the previous map for this. You can, in this window, you can right click and drag around. You can hold right click and use WASD to move around. And so this is how the movement will be. If you double click, there's this camera actor by default, you double click it. Okay. When you click it, it shows what the camera is looking at. To move stuff around, you select the object. So by default, this one is the select and translate object. So you can move this around along the axes or along multiple axes together. This third one is, this one in the middle is for moving along all three, so it gives you free movement. This one is like XYZ, and this will fix it so that one of the dimensions is fixed, one of the axes is fixed. This E key, the main shortcuts would be W, E and R. So E will give this rotation menu. This will allow you to rotate the objects. R will allow you to scale the objects. This content browser by default is down here, but I have shifted it up there. Then you could create a blank template if 2D side scroller isn't an option. using a blank template, and then like installing Paper2D should be the way to do that. Let me look. Yeah, so for in this one it's edit plugins, and then you search for Paper2D. If it's not installed or enabled, you can enable it from here. So that's probably how you would do it in Unreal Engine 5. Okay, so I downloaded a few things from a website called opengameart.org. It's a cool website. It has a lot of um, animations and art and models and sounds and stuff. So in my textures folder, I'm going to drag and drop a few things. When you drag and drop, it automatically imports it as it's required. I thought a space theme would be simple to work on, so I'm using that. So now we have these textures. To convert them to sprites, you right click and sprite actions create sprite. Or you can do right click Paper2D new sprite. If the right click menu isn't the same, you can also do the same from here. Import is where you pick it up from other projects that you already have. So anyway, I'm going to create a new sprite for this, and it creates a sprite. I'm going to put it into the sprites folder. Now this is an astronaut, so he's like supposed to be an astronaut who's walking. So these are different frames of the walk. So in Paper2D, there's a thing called a paper flip book. So this flip book has a bunch of frames, and each of these frames corresponds to one sprite here. And so each of these sprites, so this sprite is mapped onto this one frame, and then the speed of the animation is adjusted. So what I'm going to do is right click this, go to sprite actions and click extract sprite. So this will split it up automatically into each of the things, and then you can even name the sprite. So walk cycle sprite, and then curly braces 0 will replace the curly braces. So if you click extract, it'll put all of these here. I'm going to create a new folder in here called walk sprites. These sprites aren't perfect, so the walk animation doesn't line up exactly, so it's not super smooth, but I think it'll do for now. So we select all of these, right click and create a flip book, and we name the flip book as walk anim. So this is kind of how it looks. I think lower speed is better, and also this frame is the middle one. This middle frame I wanted to put multiple times. So we have 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which corresponds to the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this fourth one I want to put again here, so it's like slightly smoother in this part of it, because his when it jumps back. So I'll do right click, add keyframe, and right click, pick new sprite, which will be sprite 4, and select that. So I think this makes it slightly smoother. And then you save it. So this is how you create like animations and stuff. Next there's like you can do a similar thing for an idle animation. In this I'm just going to put these two. So control to select multiple things and copy it here. select both, create a flipbook called idle anim, and slow this down to like. So this is what I'm temporarily using for an idle animation because I don't have that many assets. Okay, so now what I wanted to do is I'll create a new folder called blueprints. So by default, this is the game mode that is used, and it has a bunch of properties for which for the game itself. So like these are all the basic classes that are used. So what I'm going to do is and similarly there's this character. So this is the default character. It has movement and jumping and animation all pre-installed, pre-made. So I'm going to copy these but use it with our new new animations. And then this change, so I can keep the original files as is and then modify my own files to make changes. So I'm going to copy it into the blueprints folder, save all, and in here I'm going to rename this to my 2D car BP, and this is my 2D game mode. In the game mode, the base class here, the default pawn class, I'm going to switch it to the one that I'm going to be using. Compile and save. Pawn is any controllable actor that you as a controller can go into and control. And now in this one, this is how the character currently looks. So I'm going to select the sprite and then change the animation. So here I can use idle anim, and then now we can scale the hitbox using R. Just scale the sprite to better match the hitbox. You can use Q and E to go vertically upwards and downwards rather than looking up and then using WASD. These up here kind of show like it allows you to snap, so the values of this is for the position, this is for rotation, and this is for scaling. So if I want to change this to not this one to something smaller, and then I adjust it so that it fits better. I'm going to shift it slightly so he doesn't clip that much. This capsule around the thing is the collision of it. So if the sprite isn't properly aligned to it, the collision of this character won't exactly match. Okay, and then inside this event graph, this movement is preset. In Unreal Engine, by default, the values for movement, so it's WASD by default. Since I use the 2D side scroller blueprint, you can go to settings and project settings. I think the project settings doesn't show up in Streamlabs. Let me fix that. I am setting up in OBS. this is how the project settings looks like by default. And if we search for input down here, action mappings. So we have the jump mapping for WASD. I mean for W, up, spacebar, these are all by default. And then axis mappings, we have move right, A and D. So in Unreal Engine, the move right and left along the axis, A gets multiplied by -1 and D gets multiplied by +1. That way, it's a single value rather than having a value for moving left and a value for moving right. We just have a single value that's negative or positive based on movement direction. I hope the okay now it I hope the other window does open. Let me check. Okay, this does open. Fine. So that was for showing that. So in here, this is the default movement for handling movement. If it's positive, so we're checking if it's positive. If it's positive, we set moving right boolean value to true, and if it's negative, we set it to false. And then based on this, we set the we make the pawn, the character move. This one updates the animation to flip it in case when you're moving left, it basically flips the animation to attach. This one is for handling jump. And up here is where the animation gets handled. So if we are moving, then so this is getting velocity. If we're moving, then we use the running animation, otherwise we use the idle animation. So here I'm going to switch this to our idle animation and our walking animation. Compile and save. We can test this here by if we click play. Let me put it into the new map that we have. So I'm going to grab a few ledges that are pre-built, drop it here, and then grab a player start, put it here, make sure it's like a line. In the project settings, I think we have to set up that the game mode is different. So we're going to switch this to my game mode. Yeah. With that in show upgrade. So in here, from the main screen, you go to project settings, go to game mode, search for game mode. Change this default game mode to my 2D game mode, which is the new game mode that we created, and in that we told it that we want to use the new character. So I'm going to save and play, and now this is the thing. The front part black matches with the black background, so that's why it looks weird. I need to pause the stream for 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Right guys, I'm back. um, so as I was showing, this is how the thing looks right now. So I'm going to create sprites for the rest of them. So we have this space background which we can put over here. So it looks like this, a bit more contrast. I'm also going to make a smaller, slightly extend this walking space. If you select multiple, the way I'm duplicating this is in the position move mode. You hold Alt on the keyboard, then drag with any of them and it will duplicate. If you select two or more, they'll act as a group. So if you click Alt and drag, it will drag out some more. And then I'm going to drag this out, rotate it, and push it up. Duplicate. Select both of these. So we have a slight more area to walk around with. So I have these few buttons. Originally the buttons weren't like this, but I colored them in to different colors. So this is how the button would look like if it's off, and this is how the button would look like when it's on. So my plan was to make a small puzzle, which is kind of like a memory game. So it shows you a sequence, and then you have to enter the correct sequence of buttons. So I'm going to create sprites for both of these. So we do extract sprites again. Check that these are fine. So if these boxes aren't fine properly, you can adjust it or manually create sprites. I'll show you creating sprites manually for one of them. So we do right click, actually create a new sprite, go to Paper2D sprite, let's call it button of 1, 0. In here, so this is if you have a bunch of things but you don't really want to use the extract sprites feature because it's not picking it up properly. So here you select the source texture. So what you can do in Unreal Engine is select the texture here, then go to the other window and click this arrow. It'll import it like this. Then you do edit source region. So here we're picking up only one of them. So you do this. And then you put this up. So now the sprite looks like this. And then we save this. So now we have a sprite like this. I'm just going to use the extract sprites because it's faster. And same thing with the on. And then I'm going to grab all of these, move it into the sprites folder. Grab all of these and move them into the sprites folder. And since keeping a lot of, if you just organize it, it is easier to access. I'm just going to drop these in there. So now, let's say I want a window type thing here. I'm going to grab this texture that's inbuilt. I'm going to copy it to my textures folder and create a sprite of it. And then grab that sprite and drop it like here. This so there's like a better background for on which we can like see the buttons easier. Okay, so now I'm going to look at some stuff. So this sprite, now we have these buttons. In the blueprints, I'm going to create a new what is it called? Blueprint interface, and this is going to be called button communication. And then so in this interfaces, if you've studied Java, then interfaces will be like, it's similar to, it's like a bunch of dummy functions that then all the subclasses can then inherit. So I'm going to create a function. One is switch on, and the switch on takes an input parameter which is of type sprite. Actually not sprite. I need to check with them in here. Paper character. Okay. So I'm going to create a blueprint class that extends from paper character. And I'm going to call it button. In here, so this way we can make one single function that applies to all the buttons. So all the buttons become part of one class, and then like down we can create a variable which tells you like what color it is or something, and then use only those two things. So I'm going to create a variable of type I'm going to call it on sprite and of sprite, and these two I'm going to keep the type as sprite. I think you can do this. Object reference sprite, sprite object reference. So now these, and then I'm going to switch these on. This will allow it that every time I pull out a button, it can hold the, like I can edit every time I pull out a button and put it onto the map. I can edit those two values for the button. So by default I'm gonna put this because you have to convert them to flipbooks and then do that. For now I'm just going to use this dark blue button. The button 0. And this one. Button 0. So here I can put in the button 0 off for now, and we'll scale it down. So now it looks like this. While holding right click and moving around, if you use the scroll wheel, it changes the camera speed. If you want, like if I scroll up a bunch and press W, it moves around really fast. If I scroll down a bunch and then press WASD, it moves around slowly. The base camera speed is adjusted through there, both in this view and in the main view. Okay, so now we have this. In the button graph, we have this has a capsule component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a custom binding. So in the project settings again, you go to input, add an action mapping. We will call this interact, and we will bind it to E. And yeah. Sometimes my Unreal Engine says there's some video out of video memory error thing, and then it shuts down. So if that happens, the screen will turn black for a bit. So I'm going to grab the button blueprint and put it here. So we have a button right here. So as a test, actor begin overlap. These pins are available by default. This one means whenever this actor is overlapping with another actor, in this case it will be our character. So in that case you place a new node and let's say print string, and we say hello, compile and save. So if you click play, and do this, yeah, it won't overlap because the collision isn't set to go through. So in the collision thing, we need to change the collision details. So collision presets will be overlap or light wave. Yeah, let me try with this. Oops. It's not overlap only. It's this one. Yeah, so when we go into it, it says hello there because it's overlapping. So what we want to do is when it overlaps, we want to tell our character that we are overlapping with this button, because we'll be having multiple buttons here. It will be like 6 buttons, or for now let me make it 4 buttons. Here I can switch this. So here we have button 0 off, Actually, since this is a source flipbook, it needs to be, all of it needs to be source flipbook. So we'll change the type of this flipbook, paper flipbook, object reference, this one also, flipbook, object reference, comprehensive. So we put button 0 off, on. On sprite will be connected to on and off sprite will be connected to off. When in the event graph, event begin play, this one fires once when we click the play button. So here we do set. So we grab this sprite, a reference to this sprite, and do set. I need to check which property it is. Set source flipbook probably. Set source. Set flipbook sprite. And the new flipbook will be the off one. And this goes here. So when we begin the play thing, it will set it to the off sprite. Let me quickly make the sprites for like a few others. These two are flipbooks. The yellow one. This one. Do underscore off. Some people were asking that UE5 doesn't have the Paper2D, the side scroller, base side scroller thing. So what you can do is go here to this thing. Let me switch the scene. So you go to your editor, probably somewhere in edit. I have plugins here and search for Paper2D. I don't know if it's available in UE5 or not, but since I assume it should be. So this is how you would do it. If it's not, then it's any other 2D plugin, not for UE4. So this is the one. I'm not sure if it's available for UE5 or not. Okay, so make 3 and another. Okay, so now we have a bunch of flip books that we can attach onto these. So this one can be the blue one, this one can be on, 1 off, and this one can be 1, 2 on, 2 off. This one, next one is 4, I believe. 4 on, 4 off, and then we save this. So now if you click play, it switches the colors. Let me select these. In here you can group it up so that the world isn't that messy. So I will just create a new folder and call it buttons. That way I can access all of these together. So I'm going to shift them a bit and increase them a bit. The other blue arrow is the direction in which it's pointing, since I created it as an actor instead of like an object or something. Yeah. So one thing for testing, we could like click play and then it says hello here, hello here, hello here. Hello appears for this and it appears for this. So all of these are working as intended. Now we go back to button. So we want the off sprites to be selected when it starts. Yep. So now in button communication, we can say switch on, and then this will be a type called button actor. So we say object reference, or so there are multiple ways we can go about doing this. I think one decent way should be like we have a button controller or something. So that we can actually put inside the player itself, so that'll be fine. So we want to, this should be of type button. That way we send the thing. So switch on and another one for switch off. I'll just reuse this to switch off and another input and to call it button and compile save. So in this button, it is, I believe, in here, and we look for class settings. Implements an interface called button communication. Here, compile this, and in my character also in the class settings we will implement the interface. So mostly what is going to be happening is, like, let's say up here, if I want to activate a button, I will call that button here or something. So like I do button on, switch on, switch on, this one, switch on, this one. Actually it's not this one either. This will be inside here. If you select these and press C, it will put a comment around it. So we call this set beginning flipbook. This we did for testing, but this will have its use later on. This we probably don't need. Switch on, event switch on. So if it receives the message for switch on, then this button. So what we do is we grab ourself. We can't do that. Okay. My Untitled crashed again. Will I open it? change your settings. So you go to settings, project settings. I won't switch the scene for this, but in project settings you can do default map. If you type default and select the editor startup map if you want, so you can switch that to whichever map you want. That makes it easier, so whenever you switch on the editor it goes to that map. Yeah, so we have base map here. I want the button blueprint. The comment did get saved. Set. So switch on. I always get confused with these because there's like multiple target is button, communication target is button. I believe this one sends a message. Yeah, this one should be the one that switches on. So what I want to do is, can I grab a reference to self? So you want to first check if this one is valid. If it is valid, you do branch. This is an if block. If it's true, you check if equals, if this one is, if these two are equal. And put this in branch too. So basically our blueprint character will call the switch on. So if the switch on function is called from wherever, then we set our blueprint like we did here. So grab all of these, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, drop it down here. If it's true, we put it to the on sprite. And then we can copy this rather than this, we do switch off, event switch off, put this in here, put this in here and there, and for switching off we switch it off like this. Okay, and then I'll probably just use this for now. I'm not sure if any of the blueprint thing was visible before. In case it wasn't, let let me go through what we did. Inside the button thing, so in here for this button self, you go to class settings and add the interface here. Create these two variables, both of them have the type of paper flipbook. The interface, we created two functions called switch off and switch on. Both of them have the button type. In the my character blueprint, I changed over here. This handle animation was pre-built after we copied it, so I put idle animation and walk animation in here. I think that's it. In here, not this one. This my 2D game mode, I switched this default pawn class. This is all in case the other one was invisible. I'm not sure if OBS picked it up or not. So here, so what I've done just now is, since we've implemented the interface, we can like use it to communicate with each other. So both our character and our button implement this interface. So this is, let's say the switch on event is called. When it's called, you check if it's valid. This is the first branch. If it is valid, you check if it's self. So you do right click, get reference to self, and it will appear here. Check if the button that was called is equal to self, because there are 4 different buttons. So if we tell this one only to switch on, then only this one should switch on. And then if it is this one, then we set the sprite, like set the flipbook thing. Similar thing for switch off, then it's switch off. One thing we can do here is give me a moment. Okay, so yeah, so what we want to do is we want to do the event overlap thing. So when our character overlaps with one of these, we want to record which one is overlapping with. So I'm going to do event overlap, this one, actor begin overlap, and also end overlap. So we do a new one called current button, and this will be a button reference, object reference to a button. So we again do an is valid thing. This one is is valid in a box type of thing. So it's like if it is valid. If it is valid, you check. Actually, we cast to button, and then do this. So that way we just directly convert it to a button. If it's a button, this will work. If it's not a button, it will not work. If it is a button, then we set this. So we grab this, set current button to this one. This is cast. I'm not sure what the other one was doing wrong. Yeah. So one thing to okay, it should be this one, and then fix this cast button. Grab this. What happened there is I was calling it an object when I set this as an actor because it's a paper character. I probably should have kept it as a actor or something. Anyway, I'll test that later. We do a similar thing here. Actually, this thing probably doesn't matter. Yeah. If you move to the other actor, then it should switch. Okay. And then what we do is interact, which is what we added earlier. In case that didn't show up on screen properly, I'm going to show it again. So you go up to the main screen, go to project settings, and input. You should just this in action mappings. Add a new action mapping called interact and set this to the keyboard key. So when the E key is pressed, we want to actually instead of this, a toggle state function would be better. Toggle state with in here we'll create a new variable called is on question mark. Is a boolean variable. By default it is off. In here instead of this, event toggle state. Window key is valid. Smooth exit box. Connected. If it is valid, then we check get is on, get branch. If it is on, then we switch it off. So we do this. And if it's off, if we switch it on. This probably works better for what you need to do. So for now I'm gonna, if we have pressed and if we have a current button, get current button is valid. So when we press E, we check if the current thing is valid or not, and if it is valid we do toggle state. This one of the current button. Compile and save. So let's test this. If I click E, Shift F2, Shift F1, eject. This is like a debug mode right here. All of this extra part that I'm doing right now isn't exactly related to Paper2D, but it's like related to Unreal Engine. So I'm gonna do possess E. How do we check that? Current button. Only that thing is unbound. Right here. The button isn't getting this thing. Toggle state. So we want to send this target over to there, as in we want to call it to the button, so which means we have to where's the message one? Okay, I'll move on and continue doing the thing. So a temporary workaround could be that we create uh, an array of all the buttons. Since we only have four, so we do button 0, button 1, button 2, button 3. We set these up. And I'll check one of my previous projects for how I did it there. Okay, so I think let me close this. Yeah, so instead of this one, you use this one. So you grab the current button and do toggle state there. So call the function toggle state on that button and give it the same button as a reference, and then it should work. Yeah, see, so it's switching on when you press E. Let me check the switch off part. If it's, yeah, we have to flip is on also, so we do here set. If it's true, you want to make it false. If it is, wait, here we go. So in here, you pull it from here and set the target to button. Set the target also to current button. So you do like this and do toggle state, and this one call function. This is the one you have to use instead of right click and toggle state. And then if the toggle, if it's currently off, you want to switch it on and save it. So now when we play, you go next to it, you press E, it switches on, you press E again, it switches off, like this. That's our base logic done. What you want to do next is like generate a sequence. So these variables are needed. So for now, I'll generate like one random sequence here. So event begin play. There is a thing called a sequence node. So this lets you like split it up. So event begin play triggers, it does the first set of things and then it does the second set of things. This is mainly to like clean up the code and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to create a new, I'll put this into a function called create sequence. I need a button list. I'll just make a actor. So we create a new variable called buttons. Change the type. Can I not make it an array? So I probably need to name the buttons. We'll create a new blueprint class of type actor probably. We'll call it button manager. And yeah, button manager doesn't need any things, like we can keep it hidden. We just pick hidden in game. We can also set its class setting to implement the same interface. here we keep the 4 buttons, so we do button 0, this is our type button, button 1, button 2, button 3. Switch all of these on so we can edit it. Then we go to our map, place one of these button managers. And then we just set these buttons, so we have button 0, button 2, button 3, button 4. So now this button manager knows all the buttons. Now when the game starts, we tell the button manager to create a sequence. So there we go. So we want this to be an array. So this is an array of type of the button actor types. Here we need 4 elements. So we use the random thing. Max editor should be 4. Sorry, this is going a bit longer. I hadn't planned for that later. So this the way I'm going to do it, it will allow for multiple things. So we'll call this sequence. And when it starts, you grab sequence. Set. For now, I'll initialize the sequence to set sequence. So over here you can make it random and then set it up like that. But for now I'm going to keep it to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we set the sequence, we want to, now we're going to be listening to see if the sequence is pressed correctly. So in here, rather than this toggle state one, we're gonna, if you alt click something, it will disconnect the thing in the blueprint. So I'm gonna create a new function and call it activate button with one button. This is similar to toggle state, but instead of using the, I'm gonna call the button manager. Like that. So you know what, for now I'm gonna leave it at this. Maybe later when I take another session we can work on this further, or I'll finish this up and show you all on the tag Discord or something. This is what we worked on for now. So we have a level in which we created sprites. We created some animations. When you click play, you have this astronaut character and there are these few buttons. When you press E, you can activate and deactivate these buttons. So yeah, I'll be stopping here now. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you have any doubts, I'll be keeping the stream on for a bit. I'll switch it off.